I think that as our communities have grown and we have become more interconnected, it has been a really important exercise for us to look at how we work and coordinate with each other, especially at a time of reducing resources, whether they're natural resources or built environment. How do we move from our homes to our jobs? How do we deliver the services to our community? How do we protect those special places in our counties at the same time that are unique to our counties and that are of importance to our region as a general? And I think that these are really important conversations to have, and there are some challenges when you're looking at issues related to local control versus a regional approach to planning and land use. I think people feel very passionately about the communities that they have lived in, and the idea that somehow their communities are going to change drastically raises a lot of concerns when we look at issues around increasing housing densities in areas that have typically been more suburban in nature. When we look at linking transit corridors to jobs, or creating jobs in terms of how much housing you have to also accommodate for a variety of income levels. It raises a lot of concerns in the community, and I don't want to call it NIMBY because I think that term is inflammatory, and when you use inflammatory terms, you've stopped the conversation. But I do think that there are community obstacles or community barriers, and unless those are addressed, all of the visioning of the world of our regional planning and visioning exercises that we're going through won't materialize into anything practical. And I think the purpose is that we're able to bring the vision to reality. I don't think it happens unless you also include the communities from the ground up approach so that there's conversation at both levels. I think one of the things that we've been talking about at ABAG is how do we identify those special areas that we do want to preserve. We have a rich heritage in some of our counties for agriculture. We have two of our cities in this region that are major port cities. We have open spaces and parkland areas, and we have certain urban center communities. And how do we then, when we plan for those kinds of developments of increasing density and transportation, also provide the funding to those areas that are taking on the higher population density in order to preserve some of those other built-in natural resources. And right now, if everybody's grappling for their little share of the pie, you don't get the bang for the buck. And those are very difficult decisions to have, but I think they're important discussions that we need to have. Until we had ABAG, we didn't really have as much of a Bay Area identity. I think we were major urban cities that had a lot of recognition, but now that we are identified as the San Francisco Bay Area and all of the things that go along with that, like we all are in some way connected to our beautiful bay. That's one of the major national, I think it's a natural national heritage site in our country, and the Delta and all of the water issues that we're dealing with. I think that until we actually had that identity, we weren't having the conversations about what happens when Sacramento is using a certain amount of water that then affects somebody else further downstream. We're able to have those really important conversations right now. I also think that it allows us to be able to compete more effectively for state and federal dollars when they come up. Right now, the Southern California area with San Diego and Los Angeles and a much higher population density usually are getting a bigger share of much of the pie. And I think it's important for us as a region to be able to work together with one voice on some areas so that we can maximize our economic opportunities for funding. One of the things we've been working on recently that I think is pretty exciting is the whole issues around climate change and How do we look at how we plan for land use and development within the context of reducing greenhouse gases, being more efficient in how we use our resources, and developing areas in conjunction with our local governmental agencies about what areas are supposed to be planned development areas, our PDAs, or planned conservation areas, our PCAs, and incorporating those areas that are more generic from the ground up to influence and help us define what our vision is for the region. ABAG and MTC have been jointly working together, and also we've included the BCDC, the Bay Conservation Development Commission, as well as the Bay Area Air Quality Management District, because all of these regional agencies need to be able to talk to each other so that you're not creating policies that are in conflict with another agency. And I think it also helps to strengthen our ability to be able to utilize resources more efficiently in order to deliver the promise of the vision that we're trying to create for the Bay Area. MTC, a large chunk of the funding from MTC is related to the transit piece. But if you're building transit, you want to make sure you're accommodating the most number of riders in those new transit corridors. One of the issues that is being looked at right now is the high occupancy vehicle and possibly toll lanes. And there have been some communities that have bought onto that idea and some that are having a little bit more difficult time finding a sense of goodwill for a public road project that perhaps they paid for that now they have to pay for again being in a toll lane. So I think it allows us to have these conversations regionally and perhaps more efficiently as we come up with the plan that we put forward to access once again, dollars. I think our bay plays a critical role in our identity. It's an incredible natural resource. We are working very hard to create a bay trail as well as a ridge trail so that other people coming from wherever they come from in the world can enjoy the beauty that we experience here every day. It is a resource that's in peril. We have heavy metals, we have plastic bags clogging up waterways, we have a number of issues that we're trying to address at the local level in order to enhance and restore. And BCDC has been one of those agencies that's been on the forefront of that fight. But when you think of the tourism and the Golden Gate Bridge and the things that people from around the world know our bay about, it is a really important resource, and it's a resource that is for many people free to enjoy. It's one of those things that you don't have to pay a lot of money to get out and see some beautiful parts of our bay. It's there for all of us to enjoy equally. So it's a great equalizer among economic groups as well. And it's my understanding that now that San Francisco has managed to land the America Cup, we're going to have an even bigger focus on our bay and the ability to let more people know about how wonderful our area is. But the link between our built environment and our natural resource really needs to be paid very close attention to, or we could undermine the work that has been happening in order to protect this really valuable resource. The salt marshes in the southern part of our bay is a really wonderful example of a restoration project that's going to add more habitat. And Jackie Spear introduced some legislation that would allow our Bay Area to tap into some federal funding to help with the restoration of our bay resources. And the San Francisco Estuary Partnership, which is a conduit for a lot of the state and federal funding that comes through, is becoming stronger all the time in conjunction with other bay agencies that are very committed to protecting and enhancing our bay. So I think it's only going to get better as long as we keep our vision and focus.
And going back to MTC, what are some of its major accomplishments in the past 40 years?
I think the focus on how we improve transportation corridors to address the needs of a population that may work outside of job centers or may live in residential areas that don't have a lot of jobs, and how we're able to move people without having to use their cars has been one of their major accomplishments. Looking at increasing our BART lines, or in our county, Marin and Sonoma, we are grappling with how to implement a Sonoma-Marin area rail transit, our smart transit. And this recession has really thrown some big obstacles in the way in terms of delivering everything that was promised when the people took the vote. But I think that they are working very hard in trying to accommodate that and to really be able to start allowing people other modes of transportation. The commitment to bike and pedestrian access has been emerging, and here in our county we've been able to, we were one of 4 counties to access $25 million in federal grant for a non-motorized project. We just opened a Cal Park tunnel which connects central San Rafael with Larkspur with about a 10-minute bike ride. And so people don't have to take a 45-minute pedal through dangerous traffic to get from one place to the other anymore. We had over 300 people show up with their bikes that first day when we opened it to celebrate that. And it was, I think, an accomplishment that demonstrated the importance of the partnership between MTC and local agencies and regional transportation programs. To really start looking at things in terms of all modes for all roads, rather than just all roads have cars. And it, I think, will also help to contribute to healthier lifestyle. We have a huge obesity, diabetes problem here in this country. So when you're creating transit opportunities that allow people to have the option to get out of their car and use their bodies, we're helping actually to reduce the high costs of our healthcare system, I believe. Well, you know, it's, again, these are very difficult conversations to have because they're very complex issues. And members of the public, many of whom are, we have a very informed constituency here in our county, but they're busy with their jobs and getting their kids to soccer games and other things besides local government. And so it doesn't usually hit them until an initiative comes in front of them that's going to have an impact on them where they live. So I think the use of our technology has allowed us the opportunity to provide information. I've been very actively involved in our own local county G channel, internet television channel, where we're doing some programming that allows people to go on in the luxury of their own home and when their time permits to become more informed and to hear the conversations about what all of these issues mean. I think we may not have been doing as good of a job as we could have been doing with making the message simple and easy to understand. The confusion right now that we're trying to address in my county between what's the difference with the RHNA, the Regional Housing Needs Assessment process, and how does that intersect with the SB 375 Sustainable Communities Strategy. It's even difficult for me to explain, and I've been involved with ABAG for 8 years. And so I think that we have our work cut out for us. But I think that part of what my strengths have been able to try to help communicate some of those very difficult issues to the public. I also, play a role at ABAG of representing some of those other areas that aren't high-density urban metropolitan areas like San Francisco, Oakland, and San Jose. One size does not fit all in the state or even in our own regional area. And how do we acknowledge and respect and support the individual and unique natures of all of our different communities that bring vibrancy and life to our Bay Area, so that we don't become a one-size-fits-all anywhere USA. And for me, that would be the ultimate failure if we lost that. So I think having the unique nature of our communities is still important to maintain. And here in Marin County, we have a very big rural heritage, and a lot of people aren't aware that just on the other side of the Golden Gate Bridge, cows are grazing that provide them with the milk that they drink at their dinner table.
So what do you see as the future of regionalism here in the Bay Area?
I think that we're headed on the right track. I think we need to continue to, as I said earlier, communicate with our community. But if we are expanding in our population, if we are consuming the resources that we've been consuming, we won't make it as a species. And I think to be able to have the conversations and to be able to figure out how to reduce our human impact on a planet that's supporting us, how do we maintain our resources, it's important that we have started on this journey together. And I have a great deal of hope when I sit around the table with my colleagues from around the Bay Area and I listen to them, especially we don't always agree on points, but we have those discussions and we can argue and debate those issues with respect for each other's positions and the constituency that we represent. But I do believe that we have all come to agree that a regional approach to how we deal with our resources and how we manage our growth is an important vision to create. And then the big question will be, how do we translate that into actually implementing it in our communities?
On the occasion of MTC's 40th and ABAG's 50th birthdays or anniversaries, what parting words would you like to say?
I like to say, keep up the good work. Don't be afraid of having the tough conversations and grappling with the tough issues, and always be cognizant of the voices of the people that make us government by the people and not by bureaucracy.